I'm going to make you walk again. She laughed, but something unexplainable happened in front of everyone. Jennifer Wilson tried to hide her irritation when she saw the boy approaching again. It was the third time that week he had shown up at Central Park in New York City, always with that determined look she knew well from kids who thought they could fix everything. That's when the boy stopped right in front of her wheelchair and spoke with a conviction that made Jennifer raise her eyebrows. I'm going to make you walk again. Jennifer burst into laughter that echoed through the park's trees. Other people walking nearby glanced in their direction, but she didn't care. Really? And how do you plan to do that, champ? She asked, still laughing. The boy crossed his arms over his faded orange t-shirt and showed no embarrassment. My name's Ethan, and I know techniques my grandma Dorothy taught me. She was a masseuse and helped lots of people doctors had given up on. Look, Ethan, Jennifer began, trying to be kind. I'm 22 and I've tried every treatment out there. It's been 2 years like this and because of the spinal surgery that went wrong, right? Ethan interrupted. A chill ran through Jennifer's stomach. She'd never told anyone at the park about that. How did this boy know? Who told you? No one. I just recognized these things. My grandma taught me. She always said every body speaks differently and we need to learn how to listen. Ethan sat on the grass in front of her chair, pulling a small cloth bag from the worn backpack he carried. Can I see your legs? No, Jennifer answered too quickly, startled by her own reaction. I mean, that's not how it works. You can't just... I won't touch you if you don't want me to. I just want to see your circulation. My grandma always said everything starts with the feet. There was something in the boy's voice that made Jennifer hesitate. It wasn't arrogance or childish fantasy. It was a strange certainty, as if he really knew something she didn't. Where are you from, Ethan? Do your parents know you're here? The boy's face closed off for a second before he answered. I live nearby, and yeah, they can find me if they want. Lie. Jennifer had spent enough time around physical therapists and doctors to know when someone was dodging a direct question, but there was something about the boy that intrigued her. Look, I don't know what you think you can do, but I've tried everything. Physical therapy, acupuncture, hydrotherapy. Spent a fortune my mum didn't have. Did any of it help? Jennifer fell silent. The truth was no, nothing had helped. In fact, some days she felt worse than when she left the hospital. That doesn't mean you can work magic where professionals couldn't. It's not magic, just knowledge that got lost. My grandma always said today's doctors know all about machines and medicine, but forgot how the body really works inside. Ethan opened the cloth bag and took out a few small objects. Jennifer saw what looked like smooth stones, a tiny jar of something that smelled like eucalyptus, and some dried herbs. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us newcomers. Now back to it. You're kind of scaring me, Jennifer said, but made no move to leave. No need to be afraid. I'll just touch your feet over your sneakers. If you feel anything different, tell me, okay? Before Jennifer could protest, Ethan positioned himself beside her chair and began making slow movements with his hands over her feet. It wasn't exactly a massage, more like he was sensing something she couldn't perceive. Do you feel anything? He asked after a few minutes. Jennifer was about to say no, but stopped. There was a strange sensation, like a very faint tingling, so subtle she almost thought it was her imagination. Maybe. I'm not sure if it's real. It's real. Your spine is damaged, but the nerves in your legs aren't completely gone. That's what my grandma called deep numbness. That's not a thing, Ethan. I've had every test possible. Tests show what's happened, not what still could. Just then, a woman's voice called out from across the park. Jennifer, Jennifer, where are you? It was Barbara, her mother. Jennifer recognized the mix of worry and irritation in Barbara's tone whenever she wasn't exactly where she was expected. That's my mum, Jennifer explained to Ethan. You should go. She won't like seeing you here. Why? Because she's lost too much money to people who promised to cure me. She doesn't trust anyone anymore. Ethan quickly packed his things into his bag and stood up. I'll be back tomorrow at the same time. If you really want to try, be here. Ethan, wait. but the boy was already running in the opposite direction as Barbara approached. Jennifer watched him disappear behind a cluster of trees, just as her mother reached her. "Who were you talking to?" Barbara asked, glancing around. "No one, Mum. Just a kid playing around here." Barbara studied her daughter's face for a moment, but didn't press further. "Let's go home. Dr. Johnson called to confirm your session tomorrow, and I don't want you too tired today." On the way home, Jennifer couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The tingling in her feet had been real. She was sure of it. It had been over a year since she'd felt anything in her legs, and suddenly, after just a few minutes with that strange boy, something had changed. But it was impossible. Dr. Johnson had been clear. The spinal damage was permanent. There was no going back. Still, when they got home, and Barbara helped her transfer from the wheelchair to the bed, Jennifer tried to focus on any sensation in her legs. And for just a brief moment, she could have sworn she felt something when Barbara touched her ankle. That night, Jennifer couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the boy, Ethan, and his grandmother, Dorothy. Who was this woman? What if there really was something the doctors didn't know? Jennifer had read about cases of people walking again after years, but she'd always assumed they were exaggerated internet stories. The next morning, during her session with Dr. Johnson, she couldn't focus on the usual exercises. "You're distracted today, Jennifer," the physical therapist remarked as he moved her legs. "Something wrong?" Dr. Johnson was a man in his early 40s, competent and expensive. Barbara made huge sacrifices to pay for private sessions, hoping for better results than the public system could offer. "Dr. Johnson, have you ever seen cases where people regained feeling in their legs after a long time?" "Well, there are rare cases of partial regeneration, but always within the first few months after the injury. After 2 years," he paused. "Jennifer, you know your injury is permanent. We've talked about this many times. But what if there's some method that—" "Jennifer, please don't fall for scams. I know it's hard to accept, but you need to focus on your life as it is now. There's still so much you can do." But Jennifer wasn't listening anymore. She was thinking about her meeting with Ethan in the park. When the session ended and Barbara went to pay Dr. Johnson, at the reception, Jennifer told Dr. Johnson she wanted to get some air outside the clinic. Truthfully, she needed to think. 2 hours later, she was back at Central Park. Ethan showed up right on time, as if he'd never doubted she'd be there. "You came," he said, smiling for the first time. "I must be losing my mind. But last night I felt something in my leg. It might have been my imagination, but it wasn't. Yesterday I just tested for a response. Today we'll do real work." Ethan sat on the grass again and pulled more objects from his bag. This time, Jennifer saw they were small stones of different sizes, all smooth and polished. "Are these stones special?" "My grandma collected them from the Mississippi River when she was young. She said the river's water gave them special healing power. I don't know if it's true, but it worked for her." Ethan placed some stones on Jennifer's feet, over her sneakers, and others along her legs. "Now, you need to relax and try to notice any change, no matter how small." He began moving his hands along her legs, not touching her skin directly, but hovering close. It was unlike anything Jennifer had experienced in physical therapy. "What exactly are you doing?" "My grandma called it waking the sleeping energy. She said when a part of the body stops working, it's like the life force gets stuck. Our job is to clear the paths." After about 20 minutes, Ethan stopped and looked at her. "Well, feel anything?" Jennifer closed her eyes, focusing on every part of her legs. Then she felt it, faint but there, a tingling that started in her right foot and rose to her knee. "Oh my God, I can feel it." "Where?" "In my right foot. Now it's moving up my leg." Tears streamed down Jennifer's face. It had been so long since she'd felt anything in that part of her body. "Ethan, how is this possible?" "My grandma always said the body wants to heal. Sometimes it just needs a reminder of how." Just then, Jennifer saw Barbara approaching on the park trail. Her mother had decided to look for her after noticing she'd left home. "My mom's coming. You need to go." "Why? Shouldn't she know what's happening?" "You don't understand. She spent so much money on treatments that didn't work. See if she finds out I'm trying something new. But this is working. I know, but she won't believe it, especially coming from a kid. Ethan glanced at Barbara, who was nearing with a stern expression. Okay, but you have to keep up with the treatment. Once isn't enough. How do you know all this? You're just a child. Ethan grew serious for a moment. My grandma raised me since I was a baby. She taught me everything she knew before she passed. I promised her I'd use what I learned to help people. Where is your grandma now? She's gone, but she left everything written in notebooks. I read them every day so I don't forget. Barbara was too close for them to keep talking. Ethan quickly gathered his stones and ran off again. Jennifer, what are you doing here? Barbara asked, out of breath. You left without telling me. I was worried. Sorry, Mom. I just wanted some sun. Who was that boy running away? Just a kid playing around here. Barbara studied her daughter's face, suspicious. You look strange. Did something happen? Jennifer almost told her about the sensations in her legs, but held back. Barbara had been through enough disappointments. It was better to wait and see if this would last. I'm fine, Mom, just a little tired. On her way home, Jennifer couldn't stop thinking about Ethan. There was something about the boy that didn't add up. He spoke as if he were much older, using words most 10-year-olds wouldn't know, and most importantly, how did he know so much about her accident? That evening, while Barbara prepared dinner, Jennifer decided to look up alternative treatments for spinal cord injuries online. She had never been very interested in this before, always trusting what the doctors said. That's when she found articles about traditional massage therapy, energy healing, and cases of people who had regained movement after years. Most medical websites said it was impossible, but there were many personal accounts from people who claimed to have had similar experiences. One name caught her attention: Dorothy Williams, a traditional massage therapist from New York City who had passed away 2 years ago. There were several mentions of her in forums where people sought alternative treatments. According to the stories, she had helped dozens of people with conditions doctors deemed incurable. Jennifer felt a chill. Ethan had said his grandmother's name was Dorothy. Could it be the same person? She kept searching and found an old photo in a local newspaper. It was a feature on folk healers in the area. In the picture, a gray-haired black woman smiled beside a small child. The caption read, Dorothy Williams and her grandson Ethan, age 6, at their home in Williamsburg. It was him. Ethan really was the grandson of the famous Dorothy Williams. But if the article was from 4 years ago and Ethan was 6 at the time, he should be 10 now. And if Dorothy had passed away 2 years ago, had Ethan been alone since he was 8? Jennifer slept poorly that night, thinking about all the implications of what she'd discovered. The next morning, she woke up determined to find Ethan again and learn the truth about his situation. She arrived at the park earlier than the day before, but Ethan was already there, sitting under the same tree, reading an old yellowed notebook. You're early today, he said when he saw her approaching. Ethan, I need to ask you something. Last night I looked up your grandmother online. The boy quickly closed the notebook and looked at her defensively. So? Dorothy Williams was really your grandmother, wasn't she? The famous massage therapist from Williamsburg? Ethan nodded slowly. She was well known, lots of people came to her. Ethan, where are you living now? Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out as we're just starting. Now back to the story. The boy fell silent for a long moment, staring at the ground. That doesn't matter. What matters is continuing your treatment. It does matter. You're just a child. Who's taking care of you? I can take care of myself. My grandma taught me. Ethan, answer my question. Where are you sleeping? He pointed to a corner of the park where a few benches were sheltered by large trees. You're sleeping in the park? Jennifer couldn't hide the shock in her voice. Just temporarily, until I find somewhere better. My God, Ethan, you can't live like this. It's dangerous. I know this park well. I know how to hide when I need to, and the cleaning crew lets me use the bathroom in the morning. Jennifer felt sick. All these days, worried about her own problems, she hadn't even considered Ethan's situation. Why aren't you with family, or in some kind of home? I ran away from the shelter 3 weeks ago. They wouldn't let me use my grandma's knowledge there. They said it was childish and that I had to forget that nonsense. But Ethan, you can't just... I promised my grandma, before she passed, that I'd continue her work. I can't break that promise. Jennifer realized there was much more behind Ethan's determination than she'd imagined. He wasn't just playing at being a healer. To him, it was a mission. All right. But today, before the treatment, you're having lunch with me. You're too thin. I don't need... It's not a favor. It's a condition. If you want my help, you have to let me help you too. Ethan hesitated but finally agreed. They went to a diner near the park, where Jennifer ordered him a sandwich and juice. As he ate with a hunger he tried to hide, she watched his gestures and the way he spoke. There really was something unusually mature about him, as if he'd lived more than any 10-year-old should. Ethan, tell me more about your grandma. How did she teach you these techniques? Since I was little, I'd watch her treat people. At first, she only let me observe from afar. Then she started explaining how it worked. She said I had sensitive hands like hers. And did it work? Did people get better? Most of them, yeah. My grandma helped a lot of people doctors couldn't, but she always made sure they kept up with their medical treatments too. Did she ever get in trouble for it? At first, yeah, some doctors didn't like it and even reported her, but then people who'd improved with her treatment started speaking up, and they backed off. Jennifer was beginning to understand that Dorothy Williams wasn't just some folk healer. From what Ethan described, she had a structured method and real results. Do you still have her notebooks? Yeah, 3 of them where she wrote down everything she learned over the years. But they're hidden somewhere safe. Why? At the shelter they tried to throw them out, called it superstition. I saved them by hiding them first. Jennifer felt a sudden anger toward the adults, who couldn't see the value of what Ethan carried with him. Could I see the notebook someday? Maybe. But first, you have to get better. My grandma always said there was no point teaching someone who didn't truly believe. After lunch, they returned to the park, and Ethan prepared a longer session. This time, besides the stones, he used drops of an oil that smelled like medicinal herbs. My grandma made this oil with plants she gathered from different places. She said each one has a specific energy to wake up the body. During the session, Jennifer felt the sensations grow stronger. The tingling reached her hips now, and for a moment, she could have sworn she moved her toes slightly. Ethan, I think my toes moved. Are you sure? Not completely, but I think so. Is that possible? It's possible. But you have to take it slow. Your body needs to relearn how to do things. When the session ended, Jennifer felt more hopeful than she had in 2 years, but she was also worried about Ethan. You can't keep sleeping in the park. It's dangerous, and the nights are getting cold. I'll manage. I've slept in worse places. Worse places? You're only 10. Ethan fell silent, as if he'd said too much. Ethan, come home with me today. I'll talk to my mom. No, your mom won't understand. If she finds out I'm helping you, she'll ban me from coming back. Then what do you suggest? Give me a few more days. If you keep improving, then we can think about telling her. Jennifer didn't like the idea, but saw Ethan's logic. Barbara wouldn't believe what was happening without concrete proof. Fine, but promise me you'll eat properly and stay safe at night. I promise. In the following days, Jennifer began to notice increasingly clear changes. During her session with Dr. Johnson, he commented that the circulation in her legs seemed better. Have you been doing anything differently? He asked. What do you mean? I don't know. Maybe a new exercise, changes in your diet. There are some reactions I wasn't expecting to see. Jennifer was tempted to tell him about Ethan, but held back. I haven't changed anything, doctor. Well, whatever it is, keep doing it. Or rather, don't stop. It's likely just a delayed response to our treatment. On her way out of the clinic, Jennifer found Barbara talking to an elderly woman at the reception. Jennifer, this is Mrs. Thompson, Dr. Johnson's mother. She was telling me about some interesting alternative methods. Mrs. Thompson had completely white hair and very lively eyes. She must have been around 70, but moved with agility. Hello, dear. Your mother told me about your case. You know, when I was young, I knew a massage therapist here in New York City who worked miracles with people who had spine problems. Oh, really? What was her name? Jennifer asked, already suspecting the answer. Dorothy Williams, an incredible woman. It's a shame she passed away about 2 years ago. She had techniques my son could never explain, but they worked. Barbara and Jennifer exchanged glances. Did you ever get treated by her? Barbara asked. Not me, but my sister did. She had leg problems after a car accident. The doctors said she'd never walk properly again. Dorothy treated her for 6 months and she recovered completely. And what was her method like? She used stones, natural oils, and had touch techniques she said she learned from her mother. But the most important thing was that she understood each body as unique. She didn't treat everyone the same. Jennifer's heart raced. It was exactly what Ethan did with her. Do you know if she left any family members to continue her work? Jennifer asked. Well, I heard she raised a grandson, but the boy was very young when she passed. He's probably in some shelter now, poor thing. In the car on the way home, Barbara grew thoughtful. You know, Jennifer, I'm starting to think maybe we should try different methods. Dr. Johnson is great, but 2 years without significant results. Mom, would you spend money on alternative treatments again? If someone trustworthy recommended it, yes. Mrs. Thompson is a very sensible person. If she speaks well of a technique, there must be something to it. Jennifer realized it might be time to tell Barbara about Ethan, but she decided to wait a few more days to be sure the progress was real. The next morning, when she arrived at the park, Ethan wasn't in his usual spot. Jennifer searched the entire park and began to worry. Had something happened to him? After an hour of looking, she finally found him lying under a more secluded tree, clearly feverish. Ethan, what happened? It's nothing, he murmured, trying to sit up. Just a cold. But Jennifer could see it was more than that. The boy was shaking and his forehead was burning. You're really sick, you need a doctor. I can't go to a doctor, they'll take me back to the shelter. Ethan, you could get much worse if you don't get treated. I know how to take care of myself. My grandma taught me. But it was clear Ethan wasn't in any condition to care for himself in that state. Jennifer made a decision. You're coming home with me now. I can't. It's not a request, it's an order. You helped me, now it's my turn to help you. Ethan tried to protest, but was too weak to argue. Jennifer called Barbara and said she was bringing a guest home. When they arrived at Jennifer's house, Barbara was shocked to see Ethan's condition. Oh my God, Jennifer, who is this boy? He's sick. Mom, this is Ethan. It's a long story, but he needs help right now. Barbara, with her maternal instincts kicking in, didn't ask any more questions. She simply prepared a warm bath for Ethan and put him in the guest room bed. He has a high fever. We should take him to the emergency room. Mom, wait. Let me explain who he is first. Jennifer told her everything. About their meetings in the park, about Dorothy Williams, about the sensations she was starting to feel in her legs again. Barbara listened in silence, her expression shifting between shock, worry, and disbelief. Jennifer, are you telling me this 10-year-old boy has been treating you with techniques he learned from his grandmother? I know how it sounds, Mom, but it's working. I'm feeling things in my legs for the first time in 2 years. And you didn't tell me any of this? I wanted to be sure first. I didn't want to get your hopes up again. Barbara fell silent for a long time, looking toward the room where Ethan was sleeping. And where has he been living? In the park. He ran away from a shelter because they wouldn't let him use his grandmother's knowledge. Dear Lord, a child sleeping on the streets. Barbara got up and went to Ethan's room. He was asleep, but still trembling with fever. She wet a towel with cold water and placed it on his forehead. Tomorrow morning, we're taking him to the doctor, and then we're going to have a serious talk about this whole situation. That night, Barbara and Jennifer took turns caring for Ethan. He muttered incoherent things in his delirium, always calling for his grandmother. Grandma Dorothy, I couldn't help her yet. I promised I would. Jennifer's heart ached. Ethan was trying so hard to keep a promise he made to someone he loved, even if it meant risking his own health. The next morning, Ethan woke up with a lower fever but was still very weak. Where am I? He asked, looking around confused. In my house, Jennifer answered. You were really sick last night. I need to go. Your mum won't want me here. Yes, she will. Barbara walked in carrying a tray with soup and tea. Good morning, Ethan. How are you feeling? Better, thank you. But I should go. You're not going anywhere until you're fully recovered, and then we'll talk about your future. Ethan looked at Jennifer with panic in his eyes. It's okay, Jennifer said. My mom knows everything, about your grandmother, about the treatments, about you living in the park. And she's not mad. Barbara sat on the edge of the bed. Ethan, I'm worried. You're a child and you can't live alone on the streets. It's dangerous. But I can't go back to the shelter. They won't let me help people there. What if there was a third option? Barbara asked. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now back to the story. Jennifer and Ethan looked at Barbara, confused. What third option? Jennifer asked. Well, our house has an extra room, and I've been thinking maybe it's time to try different methods to treat Jennifer. Mom, are you suggesting Ethan live here? I'm suggesting we give him a chance to show us what he knows. If it's really working, it would be foolish to stop. And at the same time, we make sure he has a safe home. Ethan stayed quiet for a long moment. What if it doesn't work? What if I can't help Jennifer? Then you'll still be welcome here. One thing has nothing to do with the other. Tears began rolling down Ethan's face. Why would you do this for me? Because everyone deserves a family, Barbara answered simply. That afternoon, after Ethan started feeling better, he insisted on doing a session with Jennifer to make up for the lost day. Barbara watched from a distance, skeptical but curious. She saw Ethan carefully position the stones, apply drops of aromatic oil, and make precise movements with his hands over Jennifer's legs. There was nothing childish or playful about what he was doing. It was clearly a procedure he had mastered. Now try moving your toes, Ethan instructed. Jennifer focused, and to Barbara's surprise, she managed to slightly wiggle the toes on her right foot. My God, Barbara murmured. Did you see that, Mom? I did. How is this possible? Ethan turned to Barbara. I can explain, if you'd like. My grandma always said it was important for family to understand the process. Barbara stepped closer and sat on the floor beside them. Please, explain. Ethan began talking about the body's energy points, how trauma can shut off nerve connections that are still physically intact, and about ancient techniques to awaken those dormant connections. It's not magic, he explained. It's knowledge that's been passed down through generations, but modern medicine has forgotten. And you learned all this from your grandmother? Yes. She said I had a special gift for sensing blockages in people's bodies. I started helping her with treatments when I was 7. Barbara was impressed by Ethan's maturity and knowledge. It was hard to believe she was talking to a 10-year-old. Ethan, have you ever thought about studying medicine when you grow up? You could combine this traditional knowledge with modern medicine. My grandma always said that the future lay in merging the two kinds of knowledge. Then that's what we'll do. You'll keep treating Jennifer, and at the same time you'll study. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll become a physical therapist who also uses traditional methods. Ethan smiled, and Jennifer noticed it was the first time she'd seen the boy genuinely happy. In the weeks that followed, the family's life changed completely. Ethan quickly adapted to the household routine, and Barbara found she enjoyed having a son to care for again. Jennifer's progress remained steady. She began moving her feet with more control, and sensation spread throughout her legs. Dr. Johnson was puzzled by the unexplained results. Jennifer, are you sure you haven't changed anything in your routine? This progress is highly unusual. Doctor, what if I told you I'm doing a complementary treatment? What kind of treatment? Traditional massage therapy. Dr. Johnson looked skeptical. Listen, Jennifer, I'm not against complementary methods as long as they're done by qualified professionals. Who's performing the treatment? Jennifer hesitated before answering. It's a technique passed down by a highly respected massage therapist from New York City, Dorothy Williams. Dorothy Williams? I've heard of her. She was truly skilled. But didn't she pass away a few years ago? Yes. The person applying the techniques learned from her. Well, whoever it is, they're getting results. Just be careful and don't abandon our conventional treatment. Of course not, Doctor. But behind the joy of her progress, Jennifer knew trouble was brewing. Other patients at the clinic began asking what she was doing differently, and Dr. Johnson, though supportive, was clearly curious about who exactly was administering the treatments. Things got more complicated when Jennifer ran into Mrs. Thompson at the clinic again. "Sweetheart, I'm seeing incredible improvement in you. Who's treating you?" "Someone who learned techniques from Dorothy Williams." "How wonderful. Can I get their contact? I know others who would benefit greatly." Jennifer realized she was stepping into dangerous territory. How could she explain that the therapist was a 10-year-old? "Well, it's still in the testing phase, maybe later." When she got home, she talked to Barbara and Ethan about the situation. "People are starting to ask about the treatment. What are we going to do when they find out you're only 10? "Maybe it's time to find an official way to do this," Barbara suggested. "What do you mean?" Ethan asked. "Look for a physical therapist who'd agree to work with you. Someone who could officially supervise what you do, but who would agree to work with a child. Leave it to me. I'll talk to some people." Barbara had a friend, Deborah, who was a social worker and knew many healthcare professionals. She carefully explained the situation, focusing on the results and the need to formalize the process. Deborah was skeptical at first, but when Barbara showed her videos of Jennifer's progress, she was intrigued. "Barbara, this is truly extraordinary. But you understand this is a very delicate situation, right? A child performing medical treatments." "I know. That's why we're looking for a legal way to do it. Let me talk to some people. I know a physical therapist, Dr. Michael, who's very open to alternative methods. Maybe he'd be willing to take a look." A few days later, Dr. Michael Stewart visited Barbara's home to meet Ethan and observe a treatment session. Dr. Michael was a young man in his 30s who had studied physical therapy in the US and later specialized in Eastern therapies in Asia. "So you're the Ethan who's causing all this buzz," he said when he arrived. Ethan was nervous, but answered politely. "I just use the techniques my grandma taught me, doctor." "Can you show me?" During the session with Jennifer, Dr. Michael watched Ethan's every move closely. He asked questions about the choice of stones, the oils used, and how Ethan decided where to apply each technique. "Impressive," he murmured after the session ended. "You really have mastered these techniques." "My grandma taught me from a young age," Ethan explained. "And do you understand what you're doing? Or are you just repeating the motions?" "I understand. My grandma explained everything about energy points, how to feel blockages, how to awaken nerve connections." Dr. Michael turned to Barbara. "Mrs. Barbara, what Ethan is doing has a scientific basis. These techniques are similar to what I learned in China and Japan. The difference is he has a natural sensitivity that takes many adults years to develop." "So you think it really works?" "It does. What worries me is the legal side. He can't practice alone because he's underage. That's why we called you," Barbara said. Dr. Michael thought for a few minutes. "I have a proposal. How about Ethan becomes my unofficial assistant? I'd officially supervise all treatments, but he could keep using the techniques he knows." "And that would be legal?" Jennifer asked. "It would. I'd take official responsibility for the results, and at the same time, Ethan could learn modern physical therapy techniques." Ethan was excited by the possibility. "And I could keep helping other people?" "You could. In fact, I have some patients who'd benefit greatly from the techniques you know." That's how an unusual partnership began between Dr. Michael and Ethan. They set up a small practice in Barbara's home, seeing a few patients each week. Their first new patient was Mrs. Henderson, a 70-year-old woman who had lost partial movement in her arm after a stroke. "Mrs. Henderson, let me introduce my special assistant, Ethan," Dr. Michael said. "He has very effective techniques for cases like yours." Mrs. Henderson looked at Ethan with suspicion. "This boy? Doctor, isn't he too young for this?" "Would you rather judge by age or by results?" Dr. Michael replied diplomatically. During the treatment, Ethan applied the same techniques he used with Jennifer, adapted to Mrs. Henderson's specific issue. After an hour, she could move her arm with more range than she had in months. "How is this possible?" she asked, staring at her arm in amazement. "Your body just needed to remember how to make the movements," Ethan explained. Mrs. Henderson left the office delighted and told all her friends about the miracle boy who had helped her. Soon, a small line of interested people formed. Barbara had to organize a schedule for the appointments, but not everything was smooth. Some professionals in the field began criticizing Dr. Michael for working with a child. "Michael, you're risking your career," a colleague warned him. "What serious professional uses a child as an assistant? One who cares more about results than conventions," Dr. Michael replied. The situation grew more complicated when Dr. Johnson found out that Jennifer was being treated by Dr. Michael in partnership with a child. "Jennifer, you need to understand this is highly irregular. A child can't practice physical therapy." "But doctor, the results speak for themselves. You even said my progress was exceptional." "Yes, but what if something goes wrong? Who will take responsibility?" Dr. Michael officially assumes responsibility for all treatments. Dr. Johnson was clearly uncomfortable with the situation, but couldn't deny Jennifer's obvious improvements. "Well, as long as there's proper medical supervision." But a few days later, Barbara received an official call from the Regional Physical Therapy Board. "Mrs. Barbara, we've received a complaint about unlicensed practice at your residence. We need to conduct an inspection." Barbara's heart raced. Someone had reported Ethan. "When will the inspection be?" "Tomorrow at 2 p.m. That night, Barbara, Jennifer, Ethan, and Dr. Michael met to discuss the situation. "Who could have made the complaint?" Ethan asked, clearly worried. "It could be anyone who didn't like seeing a child working in healthcare," Dr. Michael replied. "What's going to happen to me?" Ethan asked. "Nothing," Barbara said firmly. "Dr. Michael will explain that you're just an unofficial assistant and that he supervises everything. And if they don't accept that, we'll deal with it if it happens." The next day, 2 inspectors from the board arrived promptly. Dr. Michael greeted them professionally and explained the situation. "Dr. Stewart, are you aware that minors cannot perform activities related to physical therapy?" "I am." "That's why Ethan only acts as an assistant, always under my direct supervision." "May we see your treatment records?" Dr. Michael showed all the organized files with his signature and stamp on every page. "And can we speak with some patients?" "Of course." By coincidence, Mrs. Henderson had an appointment that day. When the inspectors asked about her experience, she was emphatic. "That boy has a gift from God. In one session, he did more for me than months of conventional therapy." "But do you feel safe being treated by a child?" "Safe? I feel privileged. And besides, Dr. Michael is always there supervising everything." The inspectors observed a full session, where Dr. Michael explained each technique Ethan applied and validated all therapeutic decisions. "Dr. Stewart, technically there's no irregularity since you take responsibility for the treatments, but we recommend extreme caution." Obviously, patient safety is always the priority. After the inspectors left, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. "I think we passed the test," Dr. Michael said. "But who made the complaint?" Ethan asked. They found out a few days later. Dr. Johnson had mentioned the situation to some colleagues, and one of them decided it was absurd for a child to be involved in medical treatments. "But he had no right to report us," Barbara protested. "Technically, he did," Dr. Michael explained. "Anyone can file a complaint if they suspect irregularities." The situation created tension with Dr. Johnson. Jennifer felt torn between loyalty to the professional who had been treating her for 2 years and gratitude toward Ethan, who was literally changing her life. "Maybe it's time to make a decision," Barbara suggested. "What decision?" Jennifer asked. "Choosing a single treatment method. This division is creating unnecessary conflicts." Jennifer thought about it for a few days. The results with Ethan and Dr. Michael were clearly better, but abandoning Dr. Johnson completely felt ungrateful. The decision became easier when Dr. Johnson himself suggested it might be best to end the conventional treatment. "Jennifer, you're clearly getting better results with the alternative method. It would be inconsistent of me to insist on continuing." "Doctor, it's not that your treatment didn't work. It works for many cases, but it obviously wasn't the right one for yours. Stick with Dr. Michael and your special assistant." It was a relief for everyone. Jennifer could now focus entirely on her treatment with Ethan without any loyalty conflicts. Her progress accelerated even further. After 3 months of intensive therapy, Jennifer managed to stand on her own for a few seconds. "My God, Ethan, I'm standing. she shouted excitedly. Ethan smiled, but stayed focused. Now try taking a small step, very slowly. Jennifer managed to move her right foot a few inches forward. It was just a tiny movement, but it represented a huge victory. Barbara was crying with emotion. "I can't believe I'm seeing this. Dr. Michael documented everything carefully. This case will become a scientific study," he said. "The recovery is far beyond what any conventional protocol predicts." That evening they threw a small party to celebrate. Ethan, who was usually serious, was genuinely happy. "My grandma would be proud," he said. "She is proud," Barbara replied. "I'm sure of it." But success brought new challenges. The story of Ethan and Jennifer began to spread through the city. Journalists started calling, wanting to do features. "I'm not sure we should give interviews," Barbara said. "Ethan is still a child. Too much exposure might not be good for him." "But maybe we can help others by sharing our experience," Jennifer argued. They decided to accept just one interview for a local TV program, focusing on the medical results and their partnership with Dr. Michael. The segment aired on a Thursday afternoon. The next day, Barbara's phone wouldn't stop ringing. "Hello, this is the National Network. We'd like to do a special feature on the case." "Hello? I'm a reporter from Health and Wellness magazine. Can we schedule an interview?" "Hello, my name is Amanda. My daughter has the same condition as yours." Barbara realized they had underestimated the impact their story would have. "Ethan, I think our lives are about to change a lot from now on," she said. "For better or worse. That depends on how we handle it. Dr. Michael suggested they set clear guidelines for accepting new patients and dealing with the media. The focus must always be on Ethan's well-being and the quality of care. We can't let fame interfere with that." They decided to limit appointments to 3 new patients per week and only accept interviews that were educational and respectful of Ethan's privacy. One of the calls they received was from a foundation that worked with children with physical disabilities. "Mrs. Barbara, we'd like to propose a partnership. We can provide structure and resources to help Ethan's work reach more people." The offer was tempting, but Barbara was cautious. "We need to discuss this as a family before making any decision." "Of course. But we want you to know our intention is to support, not exploit." During dinner, they discussed the proposal. "What do you think, Ethan?" Barbara asked. "I want to help as many people as I can, but I don't want this to become something commercial. My grandma always helped people because she wanted to, not to make money." "What if we can make sure the focus stays on helping people?" Jennifer asked. "Then maybe it's worth trying." They scheduled a meeting with the foundation's representatives to understand the proposal better. The foundation wanted to create an integrative therapy center where Ethan would work alongside other professionals, always supervised by Dr. Michael. "The idea is to combine traditional techniques with modern medicine, exactly what you're already doing, but on a larger scale," the foundation coordinator explained. "And what would Ethan's specific role be?" Barbara asked. "He'd be our specialist in traditional therapies, but he'd still be a child with the right to education and a normal childhood." The proposal included a scholarship for Ethan at a private school, a symbolic salary set aside for his future, and complete schedule flexibility. "It sounds too good to be true," Barbara remarked after the meeting. "Maybe it is," Dr. Michael said. "Let's look into this foundation more before deciding." They discovered the foundation had an excellent reputation and truly focused on social impact, not profit. "I think it's worth trying," Ethan said. "If it doesn't work out, we can always go back to how we're doing things now." The transition to the Integrative Therapy Center was gradual. Ethan continued living with Barbara and Jennifer, but now worked 3 afternoons a week at the center. The impact was immediate. Within weeks, they were helping dozens of people with various physical limitations. Ethan adjusted well to the new environment, but Barbara noticed he was more tired. "Are you sure this isn't too much?" she asked. "I'm fine. It's just that now I understand why my grandma was always tired. Helping people brings a lot of joy, but it also takes a lot of energy." Dr. Michael was also watching Ethan closely. "Barbara, we need to set clear boundaries. Ethan is still a child and can't work like an adult." They reduced the number of appointments and built mandatory rest periods into Ethan's schedule. Meanwhile, Jennifer kept improving. 6 months after her first session with Ethan, she managed to walk through the entire house with the help of a walker. "Ethan, I'll never be able to thank you enough for what you've done for me," she said during one session. "You don't have to thank me. You gave me a family. I think we're even." "We're never even with family," Barbara said, walking into the room. "Family is forever." A year after their first meeting in the park, Jennifer threw a party to celebrate her recovery. She still used crutches for long distances but walked normally indoors. The whole extended family was there. Dr. Michael, Mrs. Henderson, Deborah, and many others touched by Ethan and Jennifer's story. "I'd like to make a toast," Jennifer said, raising her glass of soda. "A year ago I had given up on walking again. Today I stand here celebrating a new life. And this was only possible because a 10-year-old boy had the courage to believe when all the adults had given up." Ethan turned red with shyness, but smiled. "And also," Jennifer continued, "because 2 people opened their hearts to something new and decided to form a family based on love, not just blood." Barbara wiped away a tear. "The truth is, Ethan saved us far more than we saved him." 2 years later, Ethan, now 12, was still working at the Integrative Therapy Center, but also attended an excellent school and had a normal childhood. Jennifer had become a physical therapist and worked alongside Ethan and Dr. Michael, combining her personal experience with technical knowledge. "You know what amazes me the most?" Dr. Michael remarked during a team meeting. "It's not just that Ethan's techniques work. It's that they work because he genuinely cares about every person he treats." "That's what my grandma always said," Ethan replied. "Technique without love is just mechanics. Love without technique is just good intentions. Together they bring healing." Barbara, who now managed the center's administrative side, smiled proudly. "I think your grandmother would be so happy to see how you've kept your promise to her." "I think so too, but it's not over yet. There are still so many people who need help." And it truly wasn't over. The center had become a reference for integrative therapies, with people traveling from other cities for treatment. Ethan had trained other therapists in the techniques he learned from his grandmother, always emphasizing that genuine care mattered most. "The techniques can be taught," he said, "but the love for healing has to come from within." On a Saturday afternoon, 3 years after their first meeting in the park, Jennifer and Ethan returned to Central Park. This time, Jennifer was running beside Ethan. "Remember when you said you'd make me walk again?" she asked, pausing to catch her breath. "I do, you laughed at me. I should have believed you from the start." "No, you believed at the right time. If you'd believed too easily, maybe you wouldn't have valued it as much." They sat in the same spot where it all began. "Ethan, what do you want to be when you grow up?" Jennifer asked. "I already am what I want to be, someone who helps people heal." "But you're only 12. You could still choose any profession." "I've already chosen. I'll keep doing what my grandma taught me. But I'll also study medicine. I want to understand the body even better." "What about family? Do you want kids someday?" Ethan smiled. "I already have a family. You and Barbara are my family. But maybe one day I'll meet someone special and we'll have kids to carry on the work." "What if your kids don't want this path? Then they'll follow whatever makes them happy. My grandma always said we can't force anyone to carry our dreams." As the sun set over the park, Jennifer reflected on how her life had completely changed. From a desperate young woman in a wheelchair, she had become a fulfilled physical therapist, part of a loving family, and a witness to what could only be called a modern miracle. "Ethan," she said, "do you really believe your grandmother guided you to me that day?" Ethan thought for a moment. "I think my grandma taught me to recognize people who needed help, and you did. But what made it all happen was us. We chose to believe, to try, to never give up. And we chose to be family. And we chose to be family." When they returned home, Barbara was preparing dinner. The house smelled of Brazilian spices and was filled with the kind of warmth only a true home can have. "How was your walk?" she asked. "It was perfect," Jennifer replied. "We were reminiscing about how it all began." "And thinking about the future," Ethan added. "What future do you imagine?" Barbara asked, curious. A future where more people discover they can heal when they find the right combination of technique, love, and perseverance, Ethan answered. A future where families are formed by choice, not just by chance, Jennifer added. And a future where a promise made with love can change many lives, Barbara finished. They dined while talking about plans for the therapy center, Ethan's studies, and the new patients arriving. But most of all, they celebrated the certainty that they had found something rare and precious. A family built on love, faith, and the determination never to give up on each other. Later, when Ethan was doing his homework and Jennifer helped Barbara in the kitchen, Barbara remarked, "You know, Jennifer, sometimes I think we were the lucky ones in this story." "How so?" "Ethan could have met anyone in that park, but he met us, and our lives were never the same again." "That's true, but I think he was lucky to find us too." "Maybe it wasn't luck. Maybe it was just some people who were ready to believe in miracles." "Do you really think it was a miracle, Mom?" Barbara glanced toward Ethan's room, where the sounds of him studying drifted out. "I believe that when true love meets true wisdom, extraordinary things can happen. Call it whatever you want." "I call it family," Jennifer said, smiling. And that's exactly what it was. A family formed in the most unlikely way possible, but now unbreakable. A family that had learned miracles sometimes happen not through magic, but through the perfect combination of knowledge, dedication, and unconditional love. Years later, when Ethan became one of the country's most respected doctors in integrative therapies, he always told his patients and students about the importance of never giving up and always believing healing is possible. And he always ended his talks by saying, "Sometimes healing comes from where we least expect it. It can come from a 10-year-old with ancient wisdom, from a family formed by love, or from the combination of old and new knowledge. What matters is being open to receive it and willing to give your best in return." The story of Ethan and Jennifer became legendary in New York City. The integrative therapy center they founded continued helping thousands over the years, always upholding the principles Dorothy Williams had taught: technique with love, knowledge with humility, and the unshakable belief that everybody wants to heal. And in Central Park, where it all began, a small plaque was placed years later, reading, "Here began a story of faith, love, and healing. May it inspire other stories to begin." Because in the end, that was the true lesson of Ethan and Jennifer's story. When we find people willing to believe in us and fight alongside us, no obstacle is too great, no dream too distant, and no healing impossible. And the truest families are the ones we choose with our hearts, and who choose us back. End of story. And now, dear listeners, we'd love to hear what you thought of this touching story. Do you believe in the power of perseverance and love to overcome challenges? Have you experienced something similar in your own family? Leave a comment sharing your thoughts and where you're watching from. Don't forget to leave your like if this story touched your heart, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss other stories that will move and inspire you. Thank you so much for your company.